I thought I'd give you a run through of all the costs I've had on the Range Rover this year. Well, not specifically all of them, but just the main jobs. I have an amassed table of bits here. I never thought I'd keep these bits, but I don't know why, some just seemed a bit too good to throw away. It's cost quite a lot, more than I expected, but it is so nice to drive. I know it's unreliable, but look, let's get stuck into this. The first job was September last year. The heater stopped working. So I changed the final stage resistor, which temporarily fixed it. That was good. The next job was when you were just coming to a stop, there was kind of a clonk from the driver's side suspension. That was the banana arm. I changed that. That banana arm was expensive. I'm not sure why. Probably early days of ownership. I bought a genuine one. It was £222. Yeah. The next issue that I knew the car had was a restricted performance issue, and I identified that as being a small vacuum hose that leads to the secondary turbo control valve. So that was, I think, only £30 to change. So pretty pleased with that. Once I'd sorted the restricted performance, I then noticed that the car was leaking fluid. I looked at my expansion bottle and noticed that had evidence of oil in there. So I changed these two parts. First part was the oil cooler. This is the original one. It's a Man Hummel brand. I don't think this needs changing. What you can actually see here is this seal. I think that's the thing that needs changing. People say that these warp. I can't imagine, looking at the casing of this, that could ever warp. But I may be proved wrong. If somebody wants to show me a warped one, please do. I also changed this. This is the thermostat housing. The thermostat goes in there, in the top. But again, people say these crack. I think the actual problem with this leaking is this particular O-ring here. As you can see, this O-ring is no longer O-shaped, it's flat-shaped. So I reckon that the water just leaks out of there. And it only really leaks when the car's sat, because obviously this has water in it above, and it's just seeping through that. So that's like probably £1 to change the O-ring, and I think the gasket on this is probably less than £15. So it's pretty expensive. The oil cooler was genuine one I put on, £400, and the thermostat was 140. So in November I was seeing more restricted performance issues. I took it to Venture 4x4, and they said, well, first of all, your battery's shot, it's like 4% health. So I changed the battery, got it from them, £360. So battery sorted. Restricted performance issues, quite temperamental. At that stage I didn't yet have a diagnostic tool. The next thing that came up was a slight shake on the steering wheel, and Venture 4x4 said it'll be your other front control arm, and it's just this ball joint, which is annoying really, but that was changed. So in December I also bought a new set of tyres, Pirelli Scorpion Zero all season PNCS. It's the quiet tyre. It's got blocks of foam stuck into the inside of the tread. The tyres, I think, are dangerous in the wet. The car just picks up in the wet. If there's standing water, sure, you know, I might be driving more than 55 miles an hour in the wet, but even so, I don't think a brand new tyre should aquaplane like these do. At this point, come December time, the car, well, January, the car was basically undrivable because of the restricted performance. So I bought a Gap IID tool to do some diagnostics, and it was telling me it was a fuel pressure sensor issue. So I bought a new fuel pressure sensor, but that didn't fix it. I took it to Venture 4x4. They diagnosed a new high pressure fuel pump, which they changed for a Bosch one, not the JLR part, but the equivalent Bosch, which is the same thing. But that job was just over £2,000, so quite painful. So the good thing about having the high pressure fuel pump change is we could drive the car to the Italian Alps for a little skiing holiday in February of this year. On the long drive back from the Alps, the heater was making a squeaking noise. So I thought, that's not good. And then it stopped working altogether. So I had to change the heater blower motor. I don't have the old one. I must have thrown that away in frustration, having had to spend 2 days of my weekend doing that job. But anyway, that's that done. Heater's good. The blower motor blows hard, which is great. One of the things that I had noticed through the colder months of the year is a very noisy front end of the car, a very noisy squeal from the auxiliary belt. And I solved that by changing the auxiliary belt, changing the fan belt, but also changing all the pulleys and the water pump. So these are all the old bits. Water pump. Interestingly, I think the only pulley that probably needed changing was this one. That was the only noisy pulley out of all of them. So I think all the others here are perfectly fine. No squeaks, no squeals. So confident that I can go through the colder months without that annoying and very noisy auxiliary belt squealing. If yours is squealing, it probably needs to be changed. I think it's a 100,000 mile interval on the auxiliary belts. The next job was the rear suspension bushes. Rear suspension bushes, those are the lowers, those are the fronts, those are the bolts. I think the ones that had failed were these two. I also bought a couple of laser tools. These are the laser tools I bought to do that the rear suspension bushes. So that was it for the year, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to do on the car. So my next job is this. For those of you that will be familiar with this item here, it's the lower ball joint on the front hub. It is a pig to get off apparently, but I've done my research, so I'm going to see how I get on with that. And then in about 3 weeks' time, I've got a young man called Bodsy coming to do a mega flush of my automatic gearbox. So basically change the oil in the gearbox, which is recommended at 100,000 miles. This is done 110 now. He's also going to do the other transmission fluids at the same time. So in summary, it was expensive. The total cost of all the parts, labour and tools that I bought was £7,980. I did pretty much the same number of miles in this year, and it cost me £2,200 in fuel. So the total per mile cost was £1.30. The car's in good shape now. I'm looking forward to using it, hopefully, for another trip down to the Alps. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you found this at all useful, please do consider subscribing. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, join me again when I bash the living daylights out of the lower ball joint. See you soon.